This video will walk through the first section of a particular path one could take to complete Mission 3 of the TheSprawl campaign at SlayerLabs.com. If you'd like access, please visit our site, pick a date range, and request access. This section is rated difficult and involves JSON web tokens, log poisoning, web shells, Linux pivoting, and binary planting. Be advised, like other videos, most of the enumeration, discovery, and OPSEC best practices are not included. So, looking at the mission, we ultimately need to obtain a ROM located on target SenseNet NYC. But first we'll need to get there by gaining initial access to NightTek, Holographics, or Babylon Rocker, along with pivoting multiple times. In this video, we'll cover the NightTek path. Checking out the targets, we see NightTek is rated difficult, along with the second box, not mentioned, Dragon, which is also difficult. Results of Nmap map scan show port 8080 SNMP, and SSH, but it's closed. First we'll hit 8080 with our web browser. And seeing a web GUI with a login form, we first try common credentials manually or automate things. To save time, we'll do it manually and go with a few basic credentials of admin, and we are successful. Checking out the request and response in burp. Comment is found near the bottom, and it's referencing access types. We see low priv and ultra. We see our cookie is in the format of a JSON web token, which we can decode at jwt.io. Pasting it in there, we see the key value of access, low priv. So the goal would be to change this value to ultra. And from the last mission, Mission 2, we discovered a custom script that deals with JSON web token mutation. Here we edit the value to key value as per the comment. I mean, you could, script isn't necessary, you could also do it manually, but this will speed things up. So we'll alter it, and then we'll execute the custom script. At the bottom, the output is our new JSON web token. This just uses the algorithm of none, which this application is vulnerable to. So we'll hit F12 in our current browser session, replace the cookie with a new one, and then refresh the web page. Here looks like a iframe pointing to a web page that's hosting logs. And looking at the source code, see it is an iframe and it's pointing to host Dragon and a path and index.php. So we'll go there. So this PHP file seems to be hosting a local log file, likely the rsyslog, since we see Dragon and NightTek. So it's likely NightTek is forwarding logs to Dragon, which is hosting the rsyslog service. And in the logs we see a cron job running, as well as a user agent string from our initial request logging in, which is hack the planet. And we also see the basic Mozilla Firefox user agents. So obviously we see we can control the user agent string. So our goal now will be to poison the logs, including a minimal PHP web shell, then use this web shell to fetch and execute a more stable interpreter shell. So using MSFNM to create our interpreter shell, well, moved over to our Apache web root and tail the logs. In Metasploit framework, and we'll start our listener. First, we need to send our initial request where it logs to repeater, and then we'll change the user agent to the minimal PHP web shell and note the CMD parameter. Send it off. Since we have to wait for rsyslog, it might just take a little bit. We'll use our command, or wget command, which will get the shell, write it, and execute it. We'll encode it to be safe, which will eventually paste in the URL once our shell loads. So here looks like it did as it should. The PHP code is not showing up in the user agent string. So we'll append the CMD parameter like we saw before, paste our encoded bash script into the URL, run it. Getting a hit on the access log, and interpreters established. With our interpreter session established, we'll upload a Linux enumeration script to the target. We'll drop into a shell and then chmod it and execute it. Here we see a few world writable directories. Note the home/Akira. Check out the scans and the dev directory. See a CGI script. And then in the scans we see a few files, one of which is tech, and we see a port 69 TFTP is open. looks like standard out of some netcat commands. So we know from here, TFTP is open. And in the bottom right screen here, you see that it is filtered from our Kali box. So after some troubleshooting, we'll assume that cron job schmodding the CGI directory is actually hosted on NightTek. And we'll try to TFTP this test file and potentially a web shell into that TFTP root directory and see where that leads us. So now from Dragon, TFTPing a test CGI script to NightTek. We'll see if it does load into the CGI tech bin directory. So according to our logs, there was the cron script schmodding that directory, which is typically default directory for Apache server if that module is enabled. Looks like it is. It did work, so now our goal will be to upload a Perl CGI script, a minimal Perl web shell basically. That way we can get initial code execution on NightTek. So we'll upload it with an interpreter using the standard Kali Perl cmb.cgi script. It's uploaded and we'll give it a little bit of time to Right, so uploaded successfully. We can read it. And you can see the SE password file. So like the last web shell, we'll use it to upload a more stable interpreter shell. In this instance, we're just using keeping the interpreter shells to be Linux binaries. Could potentially cut some steps by transforming it to like a CGI. But we'll, download it, schmod it, and put it into the CGI directory. And it looks like it is there, and it is executable. Now create our listener. And we'll execute it. Here, like Dragon, we're uploading a local enumeration script, and this time we can also spawn a TTY with Python. Shmod it and run the local enumeration script. Do some manual local enumeration, and we'll note some of the output from the scan. See a few interesting files. Looks like a username and password. A note Akira from the last box, Dragon. Also see some C code that is printing my Linux game in development. So from before, we notice SSH open on Dragon. But we'll try TCP or IPv6. Just need to know the address and then the interface. So SSH back onto Dragon using the new credentials we found with the note of Akira. Now we'll download the local enumeration script again. This one's less minimal than the last. And manually, you can just try sudo. It doesn't say we're not in the sudoers group, so we can try to read. It's a sudoers which is readable to us, and we see a entry in here, and we can execute user local games Wave the Dragon. Here we see Way of the Dragon is a binary file, and we cannot execute it without sudo. So now the goal will be to exploit this with binary planting. So basically create a little C app that will spawn bash, which will compile and name Way of the Dragon. And we'll download it and put it in that same directory, removing the original. Now downloading our malicious binary. Can make it executable, and then see what happens when we execute it as with sudo. So yeah, looks like we have root. Go to root. See an interesting file, X file. Here's a GPG key, as well as a note saying you can SSH directly into NightTek. I'll save that GPG key for later. Should be able to SSH as root into NightTek. And again, we'll use IPv6, which we save the output of ifconfig. So put the address in there along with the interface. And we're able to get root on NightTek as well. So we'll collect this file, juice.gpg, and we'll decrypt it offline with the key. We won't show it here, but this file contains credentials to SenseNet, the first target, or I guess the next target. But there are two SenseNets, so we'll get on that one first. It also contains credentials to other boxes, other accounts. We'll run into later. in the web root. And then we'll also make sure to grab any shadow hashes of use. So, while this is running, recapping. First, we escalated privileges through NightTek web app by using JSON web tokens. Then we poisoned the logs, which were in an iframe hosted on another target, Dragon, using the rsyslog, obtaining initial shell. Then we used whitelist TFTP to drop a web shell, hosted on NightTek's CGI bin web directory to get initial access to NightTek. Then we used then we SSH'd back onto Dragon as Akira from the found credentials we had via password. And then we gained root on Dragon by binary planting, and then we just SSH'd back onto NightTek here, collecting the files that were located in root. And that's it for part 1 of mission 3.